Chapter 1. Sister-in-law, do you not like me? If it's too inconvenient for you, I can go back to my hometown. Nancy's tearful voice echoed again in my ears, and the sharp pain from my mother-in-law's elbow jabbing into my waist jolted me back to reality. This familiar scene made me realize I had been reborn. I was reliving the day Nancy first came to our home, and my mother-in-law, who had always refused to live in the city, was now holding Nancy's hand and making decisions for me. It's not for her to say, "You're part of the Smith family. You can live wherever you want." If she, a barren hen, dares to say no, I'll have Young divorce her. Young gestured for his mother to mind her words, then turned to explain to me, still stunned by the situation. My cousin and I grew up together. If she hadn't saved me from drowning when we were kids, I probably would never have met you. Her husband abandoned her, and she's struggling. If we can help, we should. In my past life, I was brainwashed by Young and my mother-in-law. Without a second thought, I let Nancy stay. Nancy used the fact that she saved Young's life, combined with her distant cousin status, to make my life unbearable. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law, who had always made it clear she couldn't adapt to city life, handed Nancy over to me and quickly returned to the countryside. Young was always away, on business trips or working overtime. Even when he had time off, he spent it with Nancy, under the pretense of showing his cousin around the city. In reality, everyone in the neighborhood knew about their affair, except for me. When the child was born, it was a special needs baby, requiring a lot of time and care. Soon after, my mother-in-law and Young pressured me to quit my promising job to care for Nancy's child. One day, the child made a mess in the neighborhood and got himself dirty. I took him home to clean up, only to be greeted by suggestive noises as soon as I walked in. Following the sounds, I found Young and Nancy entangled on my bed. Young was whispering sweet nothings to her. "Baby, let's have another child. We'll have Mia take care of the disabled one." Nancy responded coyly, "But Mia's in the way. Since her life insurance is in your name, we can get rid of her, take the money, and live it up abroad." Furious, I rushed at them to confront them, but Young kicked me to the ground. Ignoring that I was holding their son, Nancy dragged me by my hair to the door. She slapped me repeatedly, venting her frustration. Young didn't stop her. Instead, he humiliated me even more. "If it weren't for your family's money, I would never have married you over her. All these years of hiding and sneaking around have been hard on my Nancy." I cried on the floor, shouting, "I won't give you another penny." Hearing this, Young yanked me up, exchanged a look with Nancy and sneered, "No time like the present. You brought this on yourself." They shoved the crying child into my arms, then pushed both of us down the stairs. Before I lost consciousness, I distinctly heard them breathe a sigh of relief. Finally got rid of these two burdens. It's such a relief. Chapter 2. In this life, not only will I not take care of her during her postpartum period, but I will also ensure she won't have another child. Wife, what do you think? Still stunned by my rebirth, I met Young's increasingly impatient face, desperate for my approval. I blurted out without thinking, "Sure, welcome, sister." They both visibly relaxed, while Nancy, who had been silently observing my reaction, remained calm, confident that Young would choose her. Her gaze toward me was cold, almost mocking. Nancy, with her flat stomach, pretended to be heavily pregnant, holding her waist and walking carefully toward me. She took out her phone and showed me a QR code. "Sister-in-law, let's exchange contact information. We'll be living under the same roof from now on. I hope you'll be understanding." Her sweet voice made Young beam with pleasure. I immediately recognized her intentions. In my previous life, Nancy's social media was always hidden from me. But in this life, she had opened it up surprisingly. Her posts revealed that on the day of my wedding to Young, there was an hour when no one could find him. It turned out that he was at a hotel, comforting Nancy. Even our wedding rings were chosen by her, and she was the first to wear mine. In the photo, Nancy wore my wedding ring on her ring finger, holding another hand also wearing a ring. The caption read, "I'll consider this ring as your reservation for me." Then there was the honeymoon Young canceled due to a sudden business trip, which turned out to be a week-long getaway with Nancy on an island. The latest post showed Nancy holding an ultrasound scan. Another picture of their intertwined fingers, captioned, "The one who isn't loved is the third wheel." Throughout all these posts, Young only appeared in the form of his hands, his watch, or his ring. The boldest photo was of them kissing, seen from the side. And every post received a like from my mother-in-law. Even I, as naive as I was, could see that I was the one who wasn't loved. I realized this was Nancy marking her territory. After hearing my response, my mother-in-law placed Nancy's hand on mine, her earlier arrogance replaced by a more affectionate tone. That's right. You two sisters should help each other. Mia, as the elder sister, you should take good care of Nancy. I quickly withdrew my hand and discreetly wiped it on my clothes. You've got it wrong. I'm not lucky enough to be Nancy's sister. I've never been pregnant, so I don't know how to care for someone expecting. If anything goes wrong with Nancy's baby, how could I ever face your trust? Nancy's face tightened, her brow furrowed. I continued at a measured pace. Since Nancy is part of the Smith family, it should be my experienced mother-in-law taking care of her. I'll prepare the guest room. From now on, mother-in-law and Nancy will need to share it. My mother-in-law stood frozen, stunned by my words. She had never expected her usually obedient and timid daughter-in-law to embarrass her so blatantly in front of others. She signaled Young with her eyes. Young opened his mouth to speak, but I quickly cut him off. Recently, the company has been demanding a lot from me, and the boss is pushing me hard. I'll be staying at the office for a while. With that, I grabbed my designer handbag, shot a glance at Nancy, and left without looking back. Chapter 3. The project I was handling was indeed pressing, and the boss had arranged for me to stay in an apartment near the office. After a week of immersing myself in work, I realized Young hadn't called me for days. When I had first moved out, he had pretended to miss me, assuring me that he would take care of everything at home. During a rare break, I remembered that my parents had installed a camera in the living room for security when they first bought the house, worried about my living alone. When Young moved in, they deleted the app and asked me to remove the camera. I hadn't bothered to do so, nor had I mentioned it to him. It was around dinner time when I checked the camera and overheard Nancy's sharp voice. Why is it all vegetables? Where's the meat? Are you trying to starve my son? My mother-in-law, drenched in sweat, bent down to clean up the food Nancy had knocked over, all the while smiling and trying to calm her down. It's my fault. Don't get upset. My precious grandson is the most important thing. Nancy's once gentle demeanor was long gone. Now, with the protection of her pregnancy, she treated my mother-in-law like a servant, and my mother-in-law, eager for a grandson, endured it. Seeing her foot covered in food, Nancy scowled and plopped down on the sofa, barking, "I'm not eating. Get me some water to soak my feet." My mother-in-law clenched her teeth, wanting to fetch the water but too humiliated to do so. Just then Young came home. Seeing the mess, he immediately turned his accusing eyes on my mother-in-law, while Nancy, suddenly reverting to her helpless, fragile persona, clung to his arm, tearfully saying, "It's my fault, I'm so clumsy. I knocked everything over. My feet are so swollen, and I wanted to soak them, but I can't bend over with my belly like this." Her voice grew softer and more pitiful, and as my mother-in-law attempted to speak, Nancy collapsed dramatically into Young's arms, crying like a little girl. Young gently stroked her back and, without a hint of sympathy for my mother-in-law, snapped, "Why are you just standing there? Nancy is carrying my son. Hurry up and get her some water to soak her feet." Reluctantly, my mother-in-law rose to do as told. Less than a minute later, my phone rang with her call. "Mia, how long are you going to stay out? Are you planning to abandon this family? Quit that useless job of yours and come home. How can a daughter-in-law never be home? It's disgraceful." Before I could reply, I could hear her muttering in a low voice, "Your salary is double Young's. If you quit everything, the household expenses, the mortgage, will fall on him." But you're right. It's time to focus on the family. Money isn't everything. The man should be the one earning. My mother-in-law fell silent, stumbling over her words. I pressed on, "Have you thought this through? Do you want me to quit and move back tonight? I'll call my boss now." No, she quickly replied. "Your salary is too high. Just work for another couple of years. Pay off the mortgage first." I smirked and hung up. Chapter 4. Without telling anyone, I decided to return home, knowing that it was the weekend, and Young would surely be spending time with his beloved. As I approached the neighborhood, I saw Young and my mother-in-law, walking alongside Nancy, now noticeably more pregnant, strolling through the garden. Passers-by were quick to compliment my mother-in-law. "You're so lucky. Your daughter-in-law is so young and beautiful, and she's carrying your grandchild." My mother-in-law beamed, her smile wide and genuine. There was no sign of the earlier resentment she had felt from Nancy's mistreatment. She now appeared the picture of a proud, doting mother-in-law. "Yes, my son really is something. He found such a wonderful daughter-in-law." Young didn't contradict her. Instead, after exchanging a loving glance with Nancy, he kissed her forehead. They looked every bit the picture-perfect family of four. I ducked into the shade of a tree, watching them from a distance. But something felt off. I sensed another pair of eyes on them. I turned and saw a shadowy figure leaning against the glass door of a recently opened convenience store. He was smoking, his eyes burning with a mixture of resentment and jealousy as he stared intently at Nancy. Suddenly, a flood of memories from my past life rushed into my mind. Choi. His name felt familiar, and I realized who he was. He was Nancy's child's biological father. Choi and Nancy were from the same village. He was a notorious gambler who owed a mountain of debt. Nancy had broken up with Young because she fell for Choi, but his violent, antisocial nature scared her. She ran back to Young, and after rekindling their relationship, she found herself pregnant with Choi's child. Using Young's infatuation, Nancy had manipulated him into believing the child was his. I had caught Choi demanding money from Nancy multiple times, threatening to reveal the child's true paternity to Young. Desperate to escape Choi, Nancy had set her sights on my hefty life insurance policy. I never expected Choi to appear so soon in this life. In my previous life, he had waited until after the child was born to come after Nancy for money, but it seemed that his mounting debts had driven him to act much earlier this time. I rushed upstairs and opened the door to find Young and Nancy in the same intimate pose I had seen on the surveillance footage. Nancy was nestled in Young's arms, and he gently caressed her face. They were lost in conversation, discussing potential baby names, completely unaware of my icy presence in the living room. Chapter 5. My mother-in-law was the first to notice me. She coughed exaggeratedly, drawing their attention. The two of them quickly pulled apart, Nancy moving with surprising agility for someone who was supposedly a fragile, pregnant woman. "Wife, why didn't you let me know you were coming home?" Young asked, his voice filled with nervousness. "Nancy wasn't feeling well, so I was just helping her with her stomach," he continued, but his rushed explanation only made things worse. My mother-in-law and Nancy exchanged glances, clearly preparing to explain themselves. Before they could say anything, I swiftly wrapped my arms around Young's neck, suppressing my disgust, and planted a kiss on his stunned face. "Honey, I got a promotion," I said brightly, as if nothing had happened. "I came home to surprise you, but you don't look happy," I added with a playful smile. Young stammered, his body stiff with shock, unable to respond to my sudden affection. "I thought you'd be mad about me and Nancy," he admitted, his voice faltering. I hugged his waist, resting my head against his chest, listening to the erratic beat of his heart. My smile widened, feeling triumphant. "Why would I be mad about you being kind to your cousin?" I said lightly. "Unless, of course, you're having an affair behind my back." Nancy froze, her face paling. Young tensed, his unease growing. My mother-in-law, pretending to be busy sweeping the floor, avoided my gaze. Young's heartbeat quickened, and I seized the moment to speak again. "Just kidding," I said, squeezing his waist affectionately. "You're so good to me. I'm just trying to be good to you too. That's why I've decided to use my bonus to buy you the car you've wanted for so long," I added with a teasing grin. Young's face immediately softened, surprise lighting up his eyes. Once he confirmed he hadn't misheard, he didn't care that Nancy was right there. He wrapped his arms around me, kissing me several times in his excitement. Seeing that her son was getting something from me, my mother-in-law quickly chimed in with approval. But Nancy, clearly irritated, looked like she was about to explode. Her eyes darkened with anger, and she let out an exaggerated sigh, collapsing onto the couch. "My legs are cramping again. I shouldn't have gotten pregnant. It's just too much trouble," she lamented, forcing a couple of tears to fall as she looked at me, her voice full of grievance. Sis, could you get me a basin of warm water to soak my feet? I heard it helps with pregnancy and it's supposed to bring good luck for getting pregnant, she added, as if she were asking for a simple favor. My mother-in-law instinctively started to head toward the bathroom, but Nancy's sharp voice stopped her. Are you really trying to get pregnant at your age, Aunt? Let me take care of it, I'm much younger. Besides, sis, you've been married for years and still haven't had a baby. If you didn't know better, you might think she can't have kids, she said with a smug tone, as if it were some kind of judgment. Everyone stood frozen, waiting for my reaction. I wiped the smile off my face and set my purse down. Then I walked directly to the bathroom. Behind me, I heard Young quietly express his frustration with Nancy. She was just about to buy me a car, don't make it look so bad, he muttered under his breath. Nancy, now feeling humiliated, hissed back, her voice low but filled with anger. You actually scolded me for her? Did she really kiss you and make you that happy? I returned, holding a basin of steaming water, the argument stopping abruptly. Young moved as if to help me carry the basin, but I quickly dodged him. To help her soak her feet. It's for good luck. I thought I'd try too. Maybe it'll help us have a son, I said, my tone dripping with sarcasm. Nancy leaned back on the couch, clearly pleased with herself. Thanks so much, sis. If you take good care of me, you'll get the luck too, she said with a smug grin. But as soon as her feet touched the water, she yelped in pain, pulling her feet back as the hot water burned her skin. This is way too hot. Are you trying to kill me and the baby? She cried out, throwing a fit. She was trying to lift her foot out to splash the water onto me, but I acted faster. I tipped the entire basin over, dousing her head with the scalding water. Everyone gasped in shock, frozen in place as Nancy stood there, speechless, with water dripping down her face. She looked horrified, unable to even make a sound. Young started to move toward her, but I stepped in front of him, my eyes filled with fake innocence. Sorry, it was my fault. The water was too hot, and I couldn't hold the basin properly, I said, looking up at him with a pitiful expression. I burned my fingers. How am I supposed to sign the papers for the car now? Young, desperate for the car, ignored Nancy's distress and kissed my hand in sympathy, rubbing it gently. Nancy quickly regained her senses and started crying uncontrollably. Young, the one who's hurt is me. And the baby inside me, she sobbed, trying to regain his attention. Young's face darkened, his patience worn thin. He couldn't stand being manipulated like this. Nancy, have you had enough? He said coldly. If you can't carry the baby here in the city, then go back to the countryside and do it there. If you want to, you can stay at the ancestral hall, he added, his voice stern and final. I couldn't help but interrupt, unable to hide my amusement. Oh dear. Looks like your luck ran out, Nancy. Want me to bring you another basin? Hearing the coldness in Young's tone, Nancy knew she was in trouble. If she went back to the countryside, she would be at the mercy of Choi. Reluctantly, she grabbed her things and stomped off to the bathroom, her frustration evident. Before leaving, she kicked the water basin with all her might, splashing water everywhere in an angry outburst. Chapter 6. Early the next morning, I went to the convenience store and asked Choi about some items they didn't have. Boss, do you have this brand of shampoo? Choi, smoking his pipe, glanced at me, then at my apartment and shook his head. No. Just then, my college neighbor, whom I had arranged to visit, entered the store. Mia, what are you buying? I haven't seen you lately. Choi, uninterested, continued to stare at my balcony. Nancy is Young's cousin. Her husband abandoned her, so she's staying with us. Hearing this, Choi spat, his eyes growing darker. I lowered my voice. The baby is a boy. My mother-in-law plans to adopt him into our family, and we're giving Nancy a car as a thank you. Choi's body stiffened, and he turned slightly towards us, listening intently. My neighbor, playing along, exclaimed, "A car? That's expensive." I waved it off. That's nothing. We've given her plenty of gold jewelry too. Anyway, I need to find that shampoo for Nancy. She only uses high-end products. As I passed Choi, he stopped me, his voice gruff. Miss, give me your contact info. I'll let you know when I get the shampoo. I smiled innocently. Sure, thanks. That afternoon, Young and I picked up the car. Since I agreed to pay off the loan, the car was in my name. Young didn't mind. I took a photo in the car and posted it on social media, visible only to Choi. A new car for my cousin Nancy, who's carrying the Smith family heir. Within a minute, Choi liked the post. I installed a dashcam and audio recorder in the car, took the spare key, and let Young drive me to work. He left happily. Within half an hour, I saw on the dashcam that Young had picked up Nancy and was shopping for baby items. They didn't bother with prenatal checkups but bought plenty of flashy things. No wonder the child they had in my previous life was a special needs child. It seemed they had returned home. My neighbor sent me a video of Young revving the car's engine loudly, with all the windows down, blasting music, making sure everyone knew he had a new car. In the distance, Choi lurked under a tree, watching Nancy carry bags of shopping. Nancy wore the gold and silver bracelets I had deliberately left out of the safe. They were well crafted and heavy, but the gold was only a thin layer over silver. That night, the dashcam recorded Choi dragging Nancy in front of the car. Every time she tried to escape, he slapped her, and she repeatedly explained, "How did you find me? This car isn't for me. Don't listen to others." Choi, filled with hatred, resented Nancy for running away and making their son take Young's surname. "You think you can fool me? I heard them say they bought you gold bracelets, and I saw you get out of the passenger seat. You know I need money, and you still ran off with a rich guy." Nancy, clutching the bracelet, denied it. "This isn't mine. Don't think about it. I can't afford to lose it." Choi, growing angrier, yanked the bracelet off her wrist. Nancy tried to call for help but was slapped again. "Don't hit me. I'll get you money. Just give me some time." Choi, satisfied with the bracelet, warned her, "If you run, I'll find you. Don't try any tricks." Nancy returned home crying, running into Young. Seeing her swollen cheeks, he asked urgently, "Who hit you? Let's call the police." Nancy sobbed into his arms, stopping him. "Choi found me. If we call the police, he'll be out in a few days and come after us. I took Mia's gold bracelet and Choi stole it. What do we do now?" Hearing it was Choi, Young trembled, remembering the terror Choi instilled in their village. No one dared challenge him. "Why did you take Mia's jewelry?" Young's scolding made Nancy cry harder. "Stop crying. You're giving me a headache. If you touch Mia's things again, I'll send you back to Choi." Nancy, shocked, looked at Young, who ignored her. Young, deep in thought, took his savings to the jewelry store. He had a new gold bracelet made much heavier than the previous one and placed it in my drawer. The next day, I returned home to find a new jewelry box in my drawer. Young hugged me from behind. "Wife, I thought your old bracelet was outdated. To thank you for the car, I had it melted down and added more gold. I hope you don't mind." I looked into his guilty eyes. "You personally had it melted down and remade?" Young nodded eagerly, assuring me it was much heavier. I weighed it, indeed finding it heavier, and put it on, struggling to lift my hand. For the first time since Nancy moved in, I joined them for dinner. Nancy tried to sit next to Young but was pushed away. Young held my hand and I smiled at Nancy. "Thank you, cousin. Make yourself at home." Nancy, fuming, sat next to my mother-in-law. I announced, "I'm planning to sell this house. I bought it before we married and Young's name isn't on it. It doesn't feel right. We'll buy a bigger place. Nancy's baby will have a room." Young, excited, hugged and kissed me while Nancy glared, her eyes red with anger. My mother-in-law agreed. "Mia, you're right. A house without my son's name isn't a real home. Buy a bigger place and bring the old man to live with us." We happily discussed nearby properties, while Nancy sulked and left the table early. Passing the master bedroom, she saw the large insurance policy I had left on the vanity. Her eyes gleamed with greed as she read it. I packed my jewelry and house documents, leaving under Nancy's envious gaze. After listing the house, I checked the cameras. As expected, Nancy couldn't keep things to herself. After another encounter with Choi, she discussed it with Young. "What? Give up the house? Are you crazy?" Young's loud voice startled Nancy, who quickly handed him the insurance policy. "If Mia disappears, all her assets will be yours. With this policy, we can buy any house we want. We'll go abroad and escape Choi." Nancy, caressing Young's chest, aroused him. He hadn't been intimate since I left, and Nancy's pregnancy made him desperate. Young, breathing heavily, said, How do we make Mia disappear? I'm not going to jail. Nancy, undressing him, whispered. We don't have to do it ourselves. Use Choi to solve our problem. We'll be free and they'll be dead. It has nothing to do with us. Young, excited, pushed Nancy onto the sofa. You deal with Choi. I'll track Mia. The sooner the better. Once they're dead, we'll take the money and go abroad. Their intimate scene made me sick, so I stopped recording. My neighbor called to update me. Your mother-in-law is telling everyone you're moving. She's bragging about leaving this poor neighborhood. I laughed. Did the main character hear? My neighbor chuckled. Not only did he hear, but your mother-in-law also insulted the store owner for being stuck in a poor area. She boasted about moving to a wealthy place with everything they need. The owner turned pale with anger. I sent my neighbor a generous thank you gift and warned her to be cautious of Choi. Choi waited by my car, grabbing Nancy when she arrived. She screamed and he covered her mouth, furious. That bracelet was gold-plated silver? I tried to sell it and got laughed at. You dared to trick me. Nancy, equally angry, shouted. How was I supposed to know? I got tricked too. Young bought her a solid gold one. This is a huge loss. Choi raised his hand to hit her, but seeing her exposed chest, he hesitated. Nancy, seizing the opportunity, clung to him, speaking sweetly. Let's make her disappear. Young will get the insurance money, and I'll take it and pay off your debts. We'll go back to the village and live happily. Her words, though gentle, were venomous. Nancy knew how to manipulate men. Choi, valuing bloodlines and family, was easily swayed. After their encounter in the store, Nancy returned to my house. Young, focused on my schedule, couldn't act while I was at work. He decided to lure me out. Wife, tomorrow is our anniversary. If you can't even have dinner with me, I'll be disappointed. Holding my new plane ticket and company transfer, I looked at my empty apartment. My luggage should have arrived by now. Without hesitation, I agreed. I wouldn't want to disappoint you. The project is over. I'll be home tomorrow night. Young, on speakerphone, sounded excited, with Nancy cheering in the background. I knew this was a risky move, and I hadn't prepared for a rescue. My heart raced as I turned a corner and faced a knife. Don't struggle. Just one cut and you can rest. I'll take Nancy and our son away. Chapter 9. Choi, wearing a hoodie and mask, held the knife to my throat. One move and he could sever my artery. I tried to calm my breathing, but my voice trembled. Choi, don't let Nancy use you. Surprised I knew him, he hesitated but quickly regained composure. Though the knife stayed, he didn't strike. His suspicious nature prevented rash decisions. Why should I trust you over the mother of my child? She promised we'd live peacefully after this. I pulled out my phone and showed him the video of Young and Nancy's plan. As the video played, Choi's grip loosened. I spoke softly. Don't ruin your life for her. They've bought plane tickets and listed the house. I'm here to confront them. You're just a pawn. Once I'm gone and you're caught, who benefits? Your son will take Young's name. Choi, clutching his head, muttered. So the old woman was right about selling the house? I won't let that bitch get away. She tricked me once. I won't let her do it again. My son will be Wong, not Sue. Choi ran towards the neighborhood. Shaken, I drove Young's car to the airport. In the waiting area, I checked the home cameras. Young and Nancy were celebrating early, drunk and boasting about their wealth. Suddenly, the door was pounded. My mother-in-law, confused, opened it. The door barely opened before she was knocked down. Young and Nancy, seeing Choi with a knife, panicked. Choi grabbed Nancy, mocking Young. Thanks for taking care of my child. He tried to drag Nancy away. Come home, you bitch. Have my son, and I'll deal with you. Young, sobered, grabbed Nancy's other hand, demanding, what does he mean by taking care of his child? Whose baby is this? Nancy, unable to speak, confirmed the baby's paternity. My mother-in-law, realizing the truth, attacked Nancy. You whore. How dare you make us raise another man's child? I'll kill you. Choi watched, amused. The women's fight didn't concern him. He pushed Nancy to the ground. Young, unable to accept the betrayal, kicked Nancy's stomach repeatedly. My mother-in-law couldn't stop him. Blood pooled under Nancy, her screams bringing Choi back to reality. Seeing his son killed, Choi, enraged, stabbed Young multiple times. My mother-in-law fainted, convulsing. Nancy, seeing her future with Young slipping away, ignored her bleeding and tried to stop Choi. "Let go of Young. You can't hurt him." Choi elbowed her, breaking her nose. Nancy, desperate, grabbed a hammer from the TV cabinet. She repeatedly struck Choi's head, screaming, "Hit me, will you? Get up and hit me. I want you dead. I want you all dead." Choi's head was a bloody mess. The noise alerted neighbors and the police arrived, shocked by the scene. Nancy, holding the bloody hammer, cried over Young. The police quickly subdued her. She didn't resist, begging them to save her baby, feeling its movements. As my plane took off, I felt the fear of near death. After landing, the police called. I explained everything, providing the videos. I never heard from Young's family again, focusing on my work abroad. 3 years later, I returned to sell the house at a low price. I had my family sell the car. Staring at the empty house, I felt like my rebirth was a dream. My college neighbor called out, "Mia, you're back?" She had kept me informed and helped clear the house. She told me my mother-in-law had a stroke and was bedridden. Choi and Young died at the scene. The police confirmed I was a victim, so Young's family didn't bother me. Nancy was taken to the hospital, but the baby was lost. She was sentenced but soon went mad, repeating her mistakes. She was now in a mental hospital. Nancy had also been reborn, but her choices led to her downfall. She could have changed her fate, but she chose to repeat her mistakes.